Welcome to the Además podcast with your host, Yvonne, public speaking consultant.
And Steph, visibility coach, answering all of your public speaking questions every single month. This is us, juntas, beyond the stage. Now, one of the questions that we received this past month, and I'm kind of curious on how everybody would interpret this question. We're going to take our own spin on it. And basically what the person said was, what's one thing that you wish every speaker knew before going live? Now, I was thinking about it. I'm like, okay, it could be live on a stage. It could be live on a podcast, any kind of interaction where you're like, okay, 3, 2, 1, let's go. So I think the spin that we're going to take on it today and the perspective that we're going to bring forward is when you're going on a stage and just delivering a speech. So Yvonne, I would love for you to share some experience or just whatever it is that you wish people would know, and even just consider every time they're like, okay, I got to share my thoughts and my perspective with this audience of people that I don't even know.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest things, and this is something that I try to tell myself every time I take the stage, is my audience may have an expectation of me to some capacity just based off of what the theme of the conference is, all these kinds of things. But what they don't have is a rubric that they are looking at and saying, did Yvonne meet this? Did she do this? Did she do this other thing? They're not out to get you. I think that's the biggest thing to keep in mind and to remind yourself of right before going on stage is like, yes, you practiced, you did your thing as far as the pre-work, you understand what the conference is about, you know who is in the audience, you've done your homework, and you've maybe talked about your topic multiple times. Maybe this is the first time that you're speaking on it. So one, there's room for growth. If it is the first time that you're speaking on it, even if it's the 500th time you're speaking, you'll always change something a little bit here and there. But to me, the most important thing is to remember that my audience is really just there to listen to me. I'm not being tested. They're not judging me harshly on, did she use uptalk? Did she start with a captivating first sentence, right? These are things that you do behind the scenes that no one is really testing you on the day of. And that always really helps me.
I actually love what you just shared because I feel like there's like undercover correlations with what's coming to mind for me. And one of the things that really, really stood up for me was like, it's like they're not testing you. They don't know every ins and outs of what you were going to share. And one of the things that I hear a lot of folks almost like feel conflicted around is that a lot of the times when you're getting booked to speak, there's either directly it's been communicated to you or there's an assumption that they see you as an expert. And that's why they're hiring you because you have some expertise or some perspective that's going to help. And there's either nobody else that can deliver that talk or the host themselves is just an area of expertise that they don't have. So they feel like the ethical thing to do is to hire an expert. So at the end of the day, you are the go-to person. But the word expert can sometimes put that pressure on you to be like, okay, well, I've got to be the expert. Like, does that mean that I need to be absolutely perfect? So now we enter into what you were saying. It's like, well, are people judging me? Are they going to notice that I mess up or that I'm saying something wrong or that I forgot something? And at the end of the day, when I look at expertise, it gets to be something that you continuously develop. We are all constantly learning. So really, when we're looking at our self-imposed expectation to give value, I think that's almost like a better word, although it also has its own kind of misconceptions or ways that we try and still add pressure to give value. But it's like, okay, let's peel it back. So our expertise, we want to be experts because we want to give value. So what does value really mean? And that's when I think we can get really creative with it because value isn't always exclusively, it doesn't take the form of expertise and teaching. It doesn't have to be knowledge. It doesn't have to mean that you know everything. You can still give value in so many different ways, whether it's by sharing a perspective that people may have not thought about, but it's not traditional teaching and education. Value could also mean sharing something that allows folks to really feel seen and connected. Value could be entertaining an audience. It's anything that really just adds to the experience. You're adding value, you're adding something to that experience. And that in itself can be something that whoever is tuning in to your talk can walk away with being like, wow, that was worth my time, right? So that gets to be how you showcase your expertise. It's just through your ability to connect with folks, to share something interesting, and to leave them with an experience that was essentially worth their time. And I think that starts to deconstruct this feeling to be perfect and to be perceived as this all knowing expert. It's like, no, I think it's just so important, so helpful to remember that we bring more to the table than just being a genius and knowing all the things. And as long as you have something that resonates, that's helpful, that's maybe entertaining, whatever that might be, but that perhaps folks who are maybe a couple steps not behind you, like you're a couple steps ahead of them in the journey, they would find helpful in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, there's no such thing as the ultimate expert. And I think that can just release a little bit of the pressure and allow you to show up with a bit more confidence and even just ease, knowing that there's no expectations. The expectation is just to have a good time and to learn something, to be inspired.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think something that requires less introspection for me on the day of, like right before you're going on stage, because those nerves are inevitable. And sometimes your affirmations work, sometimes thinking about I am the expert, but I also don't have to be know it all to be the expert. Sometimes you don't even have time to think about those things because you are so consumed with the nerves. So what I think to myself is, I'm already here. Like, they already paid me for this. I already committed to it, whether I feel like it or not. I have to go up on that stage, and whatever ends up happening from it, it is what it is, right? Like, sometimes a lot of my pre-work and my thinking comes in the practice mode. And then when I'm there, I solely focus literally on the step on the stage. It's like, put your foot on the stage. And once you're there, you literally have no choice but to get started and start saying something out loud. And some more often than not, that piece right there is what gets me to be like, okay, Vaughn, you already practiced all this. You know what you're talking about. It is what it is. Like, the it is what it is gets me on the stage. Because at the end of the day, if I say I think I mess up or something, one, our audience won't necessarily know that. But then two, okay, well, I messed up. I can't take that back. I can't delete this. I can't edit this out, right? It's not a podcast episode. It's not an IG live where I can just decide not to post it at all. It is what it is. It's out in the world, and that's okay. And to your points of we're on a continuous learning loop. I think to be a great public speaker means that you are always studying yourself, saying, okay, what felt right in that moment? What did I do well by my standards? And where do I think I can improve? And if you take every opportunity as a growth lesson or a growth opportunity, then it is what it is. That's like how I get to go live. It is what it is.
Yeah. And it's so good too that you pointed out specifically, like by my standards, like how can I improve and refine by my standards? Because we so often slip into comparison. So it's okay, if I have to judge or assess how I did, let's look elsewhere for comparison. And it's like, why are we doing that? Sure, we can learn from others, absolutely. But from that standpoint, when we're trying to assess and like almost like audit how we delivered a speech and how that experience was, why not compare to our past selves and how there you get to reflect on how much growth you've experienced and what you get to amp up and what you get to refine and maybe let go of. But it becomes very much more self-aware as opposed to nitpicky because you're not doing something the way somebody else is when you probably weren't intended to be like them in the first place. So it's just like, let's leave the comparison aside, especially when you're just trying to reflect on yourself and your own growth and just, yeah, look inward. I think that's it's more empowering as a way to look and find ways to improve as opposed to find ways that you're just not good enough.
um, I'll move on to my next thought, which I was thinking about staying in line with it is what it is. And sometimes you just have to show up. There are moments where you committed to a speaking engagement. You're literally there looking all cute, about to go on stage, and you're really just not feeling it on that day, whether it's a personal thing that happened, whether it's I'm on my period, it's that time of the month, whatever it is, if or I had too much coffee or whatever the situation is, you're not feeling it. You're just not feeling like you normally would on a good day. Has that happened to you? what if it has happened to you, how have you kind of just gotten through it and learned from it or moved on from maybe the judgment that we give ourselves of like, oh, I didn't do my best?
It's funny that you specifically said how you learned from it because part of me wants to say no, I haven't learned from it at all. It's definitely something I'm working on. I think the the instances where I found myself not feeling it, it was because I didn't have the capacity. Most of the times it had something to do with I overbooked myself either for that day or that week. So my energy was already low. I'm already maybe a little bit sleep deprived. Maybe I almost didn't even have time to shower. And all those instances just make me want to pull the plug. And I'm like, I just want to clear out my calendar. I want to cancel all my calls, whether it's clients, public speaking, whatever that might be. And usually what gets me through it, I feel like a lot of folks in past me would have said, oh, like reconnect to your why and your passion and like your purpose through that. And I think that's all like really, really beautiful. There's actually a lot of power in that, but it's not what I've been doing myself. One of the things that has been working is doing whatever prep I need to do that makes me physically or even just energy wise, energetically feel refreshed because at this point clearly I'm not. I need some sort of reset. I need to stop and just rest really. So whether that means taking a shower, taking a nap, maybe I do cancel one of my calls and take a nap instead, just anything to give me that little bit of energy that I'm clearly needing in that moment. But honestly, because I know that any public speaking engagement that I book is going to be on something that I am technically very passionate about, something that I do want, like I know that's there, I'm just not tapped into it in that moment. I don't try and force it or course correct. I actually try and whether it's prepared beforehand or actually try and find something to look forward to. It's almost, you could consider it like a reward system or just a distraction, just something to be like, okay, instead of focusing so much on the energy and how I'm feeling right now, let's disconnect. Because once I start talking, it's more often than not, you're going to go on your tangent and you're going to be like, you're almost going to autopilot. And it's like, right, like I've done this before, right? Like you've either done a public speaking engagement on that topic before, or you've had those conversations with peers, with mentors, with your clients. So you know what you're doing, even if it's on a subconscious level. So you just kind of need to initiate that. So actually look elsewhere. And it's like, okay, am I going to have pizza and wine tonight? Am I going to clear my calendar tomorrow instead of declining all my commitments for today and do something fun? And I think that just removes the pressure and that focus on the feelings of today and goes, okay, now I have something that I'm looking forward to. I have something that I am excited about. I'm freshly showered. I do feel a little bit better, even if it's a little bit questionable. And then I can just show up and, like I said, go into autopilot. So it's about focusing on different things as opposed to just hyper focusing on something that's clearly bringing about negative.
And I think for me, it's the reflection part of it. I always, every single time that I give a public speaking engagement, whether it's in person, whether it's virtual, I spend time afterwards thinking, doing, my introvert thing and just thinking about how it went. And one thing that I try to do is assess where I was mentally, physically, and to your point of I talk about this all the time, so I have my talking points. Once I get into it, I just get into it. And yet there are moments where I know that my delivery could have been better if I was mentally there, if I was feeling good. And sometimes there's not much you can do to feel good in the moment right before going on stage. It's happened to me. But something that I've learned from this is to not, I mentioned that we're in a constant state of, we should be in a constant state of studying ourselves as speakers. I don't use that specific speaking engagement as a marker of where I am as a speaker. I use it as a moment in time, and that helps me not get stuck there, right? Because I have a few podcast appearances that I this thought came to me today. I have a few podcast appearances where I was like, I'm really not feeling it today, or oh my gosh, this is in the middle of this big thing and this other big thing, so I have to do this, but we rescheduled this one once before. I don't like to be that person, so I'm just going to do it. But my background is crazy. The lighting isn't that great because I'm not in my normal setup. All those kinds of things impact the way that I show up and the kind of conversation that I have with the person. And there are a few podcast episodes too that I have in mind where I'm like, I wasn't as great of a conversationalist as I normally am here, or there was that one bit that I didn't like my delivery in. And I have to decide in that moment, is it I didn't like the delivery of it because, again, I know I'm in a constant state of studying myself and I know that I have delivered this in a more impactful way? Or is it I didn't like my delivery because I just wasn't feeling it? So I think when you, in the moment, there's so many things that you can do. Only you know what you can do in that moment to just get up there and speak. Like I said, it is what it is. That usually gets me through it. But to me, it's in the powerful part is in the post reflection, is saying, okay, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to do with that delivery? Can I learn something from it? Or can I just say it is what it is, leave it there, and not necessarily have to come back to it, right? Because most speaking engagements, you do once and okay, they're done. And by the way, I think it's also important to note, right? It's always about data, right? The data indicates that people in the audience really enjoyed my talk, even though I was feeling like shit, right? So what we feel internally isn't always what is shared externally. Your audience still gets a beautiful speech from you. They still get so much value from you. It's just as speakers, sometimes we just don't feel our best and have to show up.
It is way too common to think that we did worse than we actually did. Like when you were referencing podcast episodes, literally one vividly came to mind where I remember I did the thing, I got nervous halfway through, and then at the end I was like, oh, that was awful. Like I wish I could redo it. Like I could have done so many things differently. And then I listened to the podcast episode and it wasn't actually that bad. And I'm like, oh, and to date, I still feel like it wasn't that great, even though I have proof. I tuned in and I judged myself after the fact and it wasn't bad, but I know I could have done better. And it's just like, we're human. We're always gonna, to some extent, nitpick at certain things and hold on to those negative emotions for way longer than we should. There's some healing that needs to happen there, but it's so interesting how we'll have one perception and then it's not the actual reality. But there's definitely learning or takeaways that we can take from that, because that specific podcast, I remember the reason I got nervous is because I was trying to almost like hit every single point imaginable. I was trying to share so much value and I just wanted to be the best interview ever so that people could have these breakthroughs and essentially just completely rethink their visibility, when really all I had to do was hone in on one item and just make that one clear, really like get good at communicating that. And then the rest, yeah, they could learn through my content or through working together. But I didn't have to give them the entire textbook, so to speak, the entire, what did you call it, a rubric. I could have just focused on the one little thing. But I was trying to overachieve in the moment and I got nervous and it felt like a little blunder. And it's okay. It wasn't that bad, apparently.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes we trip up on the things that we talk about the most, right? Like, how many times have I introduced myself? How many times have I said what I do? And I go back to it, I'm like, I forgot to add this, or I should have said it like this. But to your point, I do go back and listen to them. And this is the cool thing about podcasts or things that live virtually. You can't, unless it's recorded, you can't really do that with the in-person speaking engagements. But the cool thing about the podcast is, well, I want to go listen to it because I want to support the podcast that I'm on as well. And sometimes I'm like, damn, I said that. Like, wait, that was kind of a really good, that's a quotable sentence right there. Like that was really good. And so to your point, it is perspective, right? I
Mhm.
feel like not so great, but the interviewer was probably like, okay, this was an amazing episode. People listening to it were like, oh my gosh, I got so much value out of
Yeah.
it. So that's always really important to keep in mind. It doesn't feel like that in the moment, but that's why the reflection and the post reflection, I think, is so important.
Really ties it back to the whole concept of being an expert. It's like you're just hard on yourself because you know the topic inside and out, and there is so many things you could say. But for anybody else, they hear probably just one point out of a 40-minute episode, and that can be the breakthrough, the aha moment, the mind blowing thing. They're like, wow, literally never thought of that before. And that, in essence, positions you as an expert in their eyes. And it's like, right? Like we need to stop putting so much pressure on ourselves or like judging ourselves like in such a big way, because it's not that big of a deal as long as you're communicating things that you're passionate about, that you know well. Yeah, again, you don't have to be a genius. People are going to love and want to continue to tune in. And it's just, we're really good at what we do. And I think we need to embrace that or tell ourselves that more. Maybe it needs to be like you called it a mantra. It needs to be one of those things that you just say to yourself before every speaking engagement, which is like, I'm really good at what I do. I belong here. Let's freaking go ahead and do this.
Yeah, it's totally a mindset thing, right? And I think too, when I started getting paid to speak and it was like 5-figure deals, I was like, that feels like more pressure, right? Like it feels like, oh, there's a mind game that I play. It's like being Latina first gen. You already come in potentially with all of these lived experiences that make you question whether you belong in the room or not. Now you're getting paid for it, and it feels like now I'm getting paid for it, so I have to prove that I'm deserving of that paycheck, right? Because to us, right, it's a big deal. To me, when I got my first paycheck, even till this day, when I get paid to speak, I'm like, oh my gosh, I get paid to do this. It still is something that every single time that I sign a contract, it baffles me. It always does, because straight up, right? It's like, oh, for 15 minutes of my time, I'm making this much. That's actually insane to me. It still is insane to me. And so it's something that you have to sit with yourself and say, not that I deserve this, but this is part of the experience. I am providing value, and it is totally a mindset thing, right? It's like, okay, people are, trust me, Yvonne. I see this, right? I tell myself, it's like, Yvonne, people are getting paid way more than this to like do to say half of what you're doing and put in half of the effort, right? I'm not saying they don't put the effort in, right? But as speakers, I think, and as a consultant, I can always see when there's words that aren't of substance, or a message that's kind of a little, I could just see those things. And I'm like, even if they're getting paid this much to do that, it's okay. It's okay to get paid this much to do this. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I to your point of giving ourselves that affirmation in the moment, but also not tying what we're getting paid to our performance, right? It's like you're getting paid because you're delivering a service and of value, and they saw it. They're paying you for it already. They paid you for it already. So they see the value in it, and they see the value in you being the person to deliver this message. What more evidence do you need? Run through the facts. I talked about this in my other podcast. But in the moment, I had to fact check myself. The fact is, they are paying you. The fact is, they reached out to you. The fact is, you have all of these speaking engagements under your belt. The fact is that you talk about this. So whether you're feeling like this or that, or feeling doubtful, these are the facts, Yvonne. And in that moment, instead of tapping into my emotions, tapping into the facts really helps me go on the stage and just get it done.
We are actually so quick to try and find proof and reasons as to why we don't belong on the stage in the room. Whereas like that exercise is so much more empowering. It's just it's what we should all be doing. It's find the proof that it already exists there as to why you do belong, because there's plenty, like you said, whether it's the public speaking engagements or even other expertise that relates to what you're talking about. You may have done this or been talking about this or trained in this in so many other indirect ways that have nothing to do with public speaking, and that lends to also why you belong in the room, why you are worthy or whatever of getting paid to speak. Like it's just, oh, I love that. We're going to be finding proof going forward of why we belong and why we get to do more public speaking.
Exactly. Just list the facts for yourself.
List the facts.
I don't know. I'll recommend a book. It's I think it's called Brag Better.
Okay.
I think
Sounds like a vibe.
Yeah. One of the exercises that they have you do on there is keep a brag book. So I like to do this with my public speaking engagements, because sometimes you forget what you even do. But just write out all of your brags, right? So that at any given moment when you're starting to feel like that, you can go through it and be like, yes, I spoke. Oh, yeah, I spoke about this. Damn, I really did that. I spoke to this organization. Like, not that all of your value as a speaker comes from who you've worked with or where you've spoken at, but it means that I have done this before and that I can do it again. So brag better, I think it's called.
Yeah. No, it's important because we forget about things, and we also don't sit in the moment to like really feel into the emotions of like, wow, I just did that. Like a lot of times we're just on to the next gig, on to the next task, the next chore, even like doesn't even have to be business or career related. It's just so easy to always look forward and be very, very busy when to just sit in the moment, even if it's just to read past wins and accomplishments. It's like, I don't know. It allows you to really enjoy the journey and to be present in the moment to recognize how much you've grown. I think that's really beautiful. I think everybody has gotten a couple very indirect, not necessarily question prompted bits of advice today, which is really freaking cool. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we wrap up and say our goodbye?
Nope, I think that's all.
Love it. Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. As you may or may not know, we drop these episodes every single month where we answer your public speaking questions. So if there's anything that you're curious about, whether it has to do with public speaking skills, how to leverage public speaking for your marketing, for your existing business or creative venture, or perhaps you're just curious about the behind the scenes of what it looks like to be a public speaker in very direct or indirect and creative ways, feel free to submit. We have a form in the description, the comments, and the link in bio, depending on how you're tuning in, how you're connecting with us. But we definitely encourage you to submit a question and we'll go ahead and answer it in one of the future episodes. We hope you have an amazing rest of your day.